I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the book of 1 Peter chapter 5, so let's focus on verses 8 and 9. Be sober, be on alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for anyone he can devour. Resist him firm in the faith, knowing that the same sufferings are being experienced by your brothers in the world. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. Have you ever considered that there may be a similarity between Peter's calling and that of David in the Old Testament? Let's consider David's story. You see, Israel was at a stalemate in their war against the Philistines. And a giant Philistine named Goliath was taunting Israel to send a man in order to settle the war. Mano a mano, just two men battling it out instead of two armies. Well, a worship-leading shepherd boy named David, who was not even old enough to be in the army, found himself standing before King Saul. And Saul was considering letting the whole war come down to a matchup between a giant and a kid. Can you imagine their conversation? Well, we don't have to, because the Bible tells us. David walks up and says, hey, don't let anyone be discouraged by the giant. Your servant will go and fight this Philistine. And Saul says, you can't fight this Philistine. You're just a kid. And he has been an experienced warrior ever since he was young. And David says, your servant has been tending his father's sheep. So whenever a lion or a bear came and carried off a lamb from the flock, I went after it, struck it down, rescued the lamb from its mouth. David got the job. I know it sounds crazy, but also he killed the giant. But David did not defeat the Philistine army himself. He only killed the giant. The Bible says that David's victory so encouraged the Israelite army that they took courage and routed the Philistines. So the devil roars and he intimidates like a lion or like a giant, perhaps. Consider 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. But greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. You know, we must take courage and faithfully resist the devil, and he will flee from you, because your faith is backed by the promise, the power, and the presence of God. The real question is, would you rather be a David or just another one of those Israelite soldiers? You see, those who choose to be Davids are willing to take on the enemy head on. Whatever form that it takes, could be a lion, could be a bear, could be a giant, all in order to rescue God's oppressed lambs. Davids, well, those guys endure suffering and they take on giants, knowing that one man's personal victory can encourage an army to win a war. Of course, like David, Peter had to learn a lot about the importance of shepherding too, because Peter's job after Jesus' resurrection was watching after the Lord's flock and defending them against that lion, the devil. And we see that in today's passage. Peter received this command from Jesus in John chapter 21, verse 17. Jesus said, feed my sheep. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.